When Claire Harlow inherited a house carved inside a mountain, everyone called it a curse. But the silence inside those stone walls wasn't empty. It was watching. With only her husky, Balto, by her side, Claire stepped into a secret her father died to protect. And what she uncovered beneath the rock changed what it means to be alive. Where are you watching from today? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that will haunt your heart and stir your soul. The drive through the desert felt endless, a ribbon of cracked asphalt stretching between rust-colored cliffs and a sky too wide for comfort. The radio had long fallen silent, the last station fading into static somewhere beyond the ridge. In the passenger seat, Balto, her husky with thick, white-gray fur and eyes like frozen lakes, lay with his head resting on the console, occasionally lifting his gaze toward the window, as if tracking ghosts in the heat shimmer. Claire Harlow hadn't spoken in hours. The only sound was the groan of the old Jeep climbing toward the coordinates she'd been given by her father's attorney. Somewhere up there, according to the will, was her inheritance. A private residence carved into the side of the Santero Range, on the outskirts of a ghost settlement called Juniper Basin. The lawyer's words echoed in her head. "It's unconventional, Miss Harlow, but your father was very specific. The deed must remain in your name, and you must take personal possession." A house inside a mountain. She almost laughed at the absurdity, but laughter had left her months ago, back on the highway where her husband and son never made it home. Since then, she had been a ghost moving through her own life, quiet, efficient, untethered. The inheritance was just another task, another errand to finish before deciding what came next. The last stretch of road turned to dirt, winding between ancient rock formations. The GPS blinked and died. Claire stopped the Jeep and stepped out into the heavy silence. The air smelled of dust and sage. The wind carried nothing, no birds, no life. Balto jumped down beside her, nose twitching, muscles alert. His tail lifted slightly, cautious, sensing something unfamiliar. Ahead, half hidden behind desert shrubs, stood a structure unlike anything she'd ever seen. A massive steel door embedded directly into the cliff face, framed by weathered concrete and faint markings worn by time. For a moment, Claire thought it looked more like a bunker than a home. She approached slowly, her boots crunching against the gravel. A keypad, corroded but intact, was mounted near the doorframe. When she brushed the dust from its surface, the panel flickered to life with a dull green glow. Access granted. "Welcome, Claire Harlow." Her chest tightened. She hadn't entered any code. The door shuddered, then opened inward with a mechanical groan that echoed deep into the stone. A rush of cold air rolled out, smelling of oil and metal. Balto growled low in his throat, fur bristling. Inside, the light was dim, filtered through long corridors carved straight into the rock. Claire switched on her flashlight, the beam slicing through the dark. What it revealed didn't feel like a home. It felt like a laboratory stripped of its purpose. Tables bolted into stone floors, shelves with thick layers of dust, a few framed photographs on the wall. The images so faded they looked like shadows of faces. "Home, sweet home," she whispered bitterly. Her voice echoed back, distorted, as if someone else had spoken. Balto padded forward, sniffing the corners, pausing every few feet to listen. He stopped suddenly in front of a wall near the main chamber, ears pricked, tail stiff. Then came a low growl that turned into a sharp bark, echoing like thunder through the hollow space. "Hey," Claire said softly, stepping closer. "What is it?" Balto's gaze didn't move. His eyes were locked on a section of wall slightly darker than the rest. She ran her hand across it, smooth limestone, cold to the touch. But beneath the surface, something pulsed faintly, a vibration she could almost feel in her fingertips. She knocked once. The sound was off-hollow, like there was a void behind it. "Jesus," she murmured, stepping back. The dog whined, pacing, glancing between her and the wall as if begging her to understand. Claire followed the narrow hallway to what looked like a control room. Old monitors sat dead on the counters. A clipboard hung from a nail, covered in yellowed pages of handwritten notes, her father's handwriting. The top line read, "Juniper Basin Initiative, Phase 3 containment ongoing. The last entry was dated March 12, 1989. Her father was supposed to have died that year. Claire's pulse quickened. She flipped through the papers, finding schematics, data logs, and at the bottom an envelope sealed in wax. Written across it, in her father's bold, deliberate hand, "For my daughter, do not open the wall." Her breath hitched. Balto whined beside her, brushing against her leg. She sat on the cold floor, the envelope trembling in her hands. Her father had been a quiet man, methodical, distant even when he tried to be kind. Their last conversation had been over the phone, a fight about her leaving journalism, about giving up the truth. Now decades of silence lay between them, broken only by this warning written in a dead man's hand. "Do not open the wall." The words pulsed in her mind, their weight heavier than stone. Balto lay down near the doorway, ears twitching at every faint echo from deeper within the cave. The air hummed softly, like an old generator buried somewhere below. Claire leaned her head against the wall, feeling the cold radiate through her skin. For the first time in months, she didn't think of the crash, of the twisted metal and flashing lights. She thought of her father alone in this place, building something the world had forgotten. The flashlight flickered. Then just for a second, she heard it. A sound behind the wall, a faint, rhythmic tapping. 3 knocks, a pause, then 3 more. Balto rose instantly, barking toward the sound. The hairs along his spine stood like wire. Claire froze, her heart hammering in her chest. The sound came again, slow, deliberate, like a code. She stepped back, eyes wide, whispering, "Someone's there!" But the rational part of her mind rejected it. No one could be behind that wall, not after 30 years. And yet, she could feel it. The air was colder now. The faint smell of ozone drifted through the chamber, sharp and metallic. She turned toward the entryway, suddenly desperate for light, for the open sky. But as she reached for the door, Balto let out a deep, guttural growl and moved to block her path, his body tense, eyes fixed on something behind her. Claire turned. In the reflection of the steel cabinet, distorted by dust and scratches, she saw a figure standing in the hallway, a man's outline, motionless, facing her. She spun around, the flashlight beam slicing through empty air. No one there. The corridor was silent. Only her own breath filled the void. The light flickered once more, and in that brief strobe of darkness, the wall pulsed faintly, just enough for her to see it breathe. Balto whimpered low, pressing against her leg. Claire's voice trembled as she whispered to the empty chamber, "Dad, what did you leave behind?" The wind outside howled through the cracks, carrying the echo of her words into the depths of stone, where something unseen was already listening. And beneath the surface, behind the hollow wall, a faint red light blinked twice, then held steady. The desert morning came without color, a pale, washed-out gray spilling over the cliffs. Claire woke to the low whine of wind moving through the canyon and the sound of Balto pacing near the steel door. The husky's nails clicked against the concrete floor in a restless rhythm. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, darted toward the dark corridor again and again, as if something inside the cave had been calling all night. Claire rubbed her face, the cold air biting her skin. She had slept in her clothes, too uneasy to rest properly after what she'd heard, the tapping from behind the wall, that strange pulse of sound that seemed to breathe. She pushed herself up from the cot, whispering softly, "It's just the wind in the rock, Balto. That's all." But even as she said it, she didn't believe it. The cave didn't feel dead. It felt alive. She poured water into a metal bowl for Balto, then opened her laptop, the screen's glow cutting through the shadows. The envelope her father had left. "Do not open the wall" lay on the table beside her. She hadn't opened it, not yet. Some part of her feared that doing so would turn the unease into something tangible, irreversible. Instead, she decided to look for context. Anything that could make sense of why a man would build a house inside a mountain and seal a wall like a tomb. She typed Juniper Basin Initiative into the search bar. The connection out here was weak, but after a few minutes, a handful of archived government articles loaded. The words blurred together in a storm of bureaucratic phrasing: Energy Development Act, containment breach, classified environmental data. Then a headline stopped her cold. Explosion at Juniper Basin Research Facility, 14 dead. The date, March 1989, the same year her father's death certificate had been issued. Her hand trembled as she clicked. The article described a massive underground detonation, a containment failure caused by experimental energy studies. It named several victims, technicians, engineers, and one Dr. Henry Harlow, her father. The report concluded that the site was permanently sealed by federal order, but the coordinates listed matched exactly where she was sitting now. Claire leaned back, staring into the darkness beyond the table. The faint hum of machinery echoed somewhere deep in the rock, a vibration she could feel in her bones. If this place had exploded, it shouldn't exist anymore. But it did, and somehow the power still flowed. Balto's low growl pulled her out of her thoughts. He stood rigid, staring down the corridor again. His tail was stiff, his body tense. Claire grabbed her flashlight and followed him. The air grew colder the deeper they went. The walls were smoother here, less natural cut by machines. Cables ran along the ceiling, thick with dust. A door waited at the end of the hallway, half covered in rust. A faded sign above it read, "Restricted Access, Phase 3. Balto stopped just short of it, sniffing the floor. His ears flattened as a faint metallic clang echoed from somewhere beyond the door, followed by a distant, rhythmic thump. Claire hesitated, then turned the handle. To her surprise, it gave way easily. The door creaked open to reveal a large chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. The beam of her flashlight caught the gleam of metal tables, toppled equipment, and walls lined with shattered glass panels. It was a laboratory, but one frozen in time, as if the people here had simply vanished mid-motion. Papers lay scattered across the floor. A single monitor in the far corner still blinked faintly with power, its glow the color of old moonlight. Claire stepped closer, dust rising around her boots. Balto followed, his paw pads silent on the concrete. The monitor's display flickered, showing a distorted line of text looping endlessly. Juniper Basin Initiative, System Sleep Mode. She pressed a key. The text changed. User Dr. H. Harlow. Access detected. Her heart nearly stopped. The machine was recognizing her presence. Balto barked once, sharp and startled, as the monitor flickered again, then shifted to a video feed. A static-filled image resolved into her father's face. He looked older than she remembered, hair graying at the edges, eyes sunken but alert. He stared into the camera, breathing hard. "If you're watching this," he said, voice trembling but determined, "then they found me. Or they found you." He looked off screen, as if hearing something. "I didn't want this for you, Claire. I told them the project was flawed, that what we were doing went against everything human, but they called it progress. I had to bury it, to bury them." A bang sounded in the recording, metal striking metal. Her father flinched. "If they're still out there, if you've come back here, you mustn't open the wall. The seal isn't containment anymore, it's protection." The video glitched violently, then cut to black. Claire stood frozen, staring at her own reflection in the blank screen. Balto whined softly beside her, pressing his head against her leg as if sensing the storm that had just broken inside her. She touched his fur absently, her thoughts spiraling. Her father hadn't died in that explosion. He'd caused it, to bury something. The tapping behind the wall came again. 3 slow knocks, then silence. She spun around, light darting across the lab. The sound had come from the far side of the room, where another passage disappeared into darkness. Balto growled, his hackles raised. Claire stepped closer, her boots scraping across the floor. The wall there looked different, smooth, polished stone veined with silver streaks. She pressed her ear to it. Nothing. Then faintly, a whisper-like wind moving through a narrow vent. Except it wasn't the wind. It was words. A voice distorted, hollow, but unmistakably human. "Claire." Her blood ran cold. She stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight. Balto barked, lunging forward, claws scraping against the stone. The voice came again, quieter this time, almost pleading. "Help! Me!" Claire's breath quickened. She aimed the light at the wall, and something glinted near its base. A thin metallic panel, bolted shut. The bolts were clean, newer than everything else around them. She reached out and touched it. The metal vibrated faintly, humming beneath her fingers like a living pulse. She stepped back. The flashlight trembled in her grip. She didn't know whether to run or stay, whether to obey her father's warning or tear the place open and face whatever he'd buried. But she did know one thing. The tapping wasn't an echo. It was an answer. Balto whined again, his ears flicking toward the corridor they'd come from. The lights overhead flickered, the old wiring humming to life. Somewhere deeper inside the mountain, something began to power up. The hum turned into a low vibration that made the floor tremble beneath her boots. The entire chamber pulsed with faint red light. On the monitor behind her, new words appeared on the screen, glitching through the static like a heartbeat. Access override. Claire Harlow, biometric link. Active. Claire's mouth went dry. Her father's warning rang in her ears. Do not open the wall. She stumbled backward toward the exit, dragging Balto by his collar. The vibration deepened into a rumble, as if the mountain itself had taken a breath. A hairline crack raced across the polished stone, splitting the wall from floor to ceiling. Through it seeped a faint mist, cold and white, smelling faintly of ozone and rot. Balto barked again, fierce, defiant, positioning himself between her and the wall. Come on, boy, she whispered, pulling him toward the door. We're leaving. Now. But as they reached the threshold, a deep mechanical sound echoed through the chamber, a slow, grinding shift like gears turning after decades of stillness. The crack widened, spilling light so bright it washed the walls pale. Claire shielded her eyes. The light flickered once, then vanished. And in the silence that followed, the voice came again. No longer distant, but whispering directly behind her ear. Welcome back, Claire, Balto growled, snapping his jaws at the empty air. The flashlight dropped from her hand, clattering across the floor. When she looked toward the monitor, the screen was no longer black. It showed a heartbeat, her heartbeat, and beneath it, the words pulsed in perfect rhythm. Primary link established. Phase 4. Beginning. The hum of the mountain filled her ears, deep and alive. Balto barked once more, his echo colliding with the sound of machines awakening after 30 years of silence. And Claire, trembling in the doorway, realized with crushing clarity whatever her father had sealed away inside this mountain had just woken up. By the time Claire reached the upper level, the air had turned heavy, thick with the scent of metal and ozone. The cave hummed beneath her boots like something alive beneath the floor. Balto stayed close, his body pressed against her leg, ears flicking toward every sound in the dark. The steel door to the outside looked suddenly fragile, the faint light from the desert bleeding through its cracks like a dying heartbeat. She grabbed her phone. No signal. The emergency battery indicator flashed red, taunting her. It had been barely 24 hours since she stepped into this place, and already the world beyond felt distant, like a fading dream. She poured water for Balto, her hands trembling. "What the hell did you build, Dad?" she whispered, voice echoing against the stone. The only answer came from the humming deep below. That night she sat by the old generator room, sorting through what remained of her father's notes. Many were destroyed by time and mold, but some survived, handwritten logs, clipped newspaper articles, letters addressed to the Department of Defense. Each page carried the same project title, Juniper Basin Initiative. And beneath it, in smaller letters, Phase 3, Consciousness Mapping. Her father's handwriting was precise, unshaken. She traced her finger along the margin where he had scrawled, Containment requires sacrifice. Sacrifice. She exhaled sharply, closing her eyes. When she opened them, Balto was staring toward the dark corridor again, his nose twitching. He let out a soft growl, then padded forward. Claire followed him, clutching a flashlight in one hand and her father's journal in the other. The light trembled across the walls as they moved deeper into the passage. The hum was louder now. The narrow hallway opened into a wide chamber she hadn't seen before, a circular room with blackened walls and a thick glass panel half buried under debris. When she brushed away the dust, she saw a keypad glowing faintly beneath the surface. Authorization required. Claire hesitated, then pressed her palm to the sensor. The glass flickered, scanning her hand. A series of beeps filled the silence, and then impossibly, the light turned green. Access granted. User C. Harlow. Balto barked once, startled as the floor beneath them vibrated. A section of the wall slid away, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward into light. Claire gripped the rail and descended. The air grew colder with every step. Her breath fogged in front of her face. Balto followed, silent now, moving like a shadow. At the bottom, the stairs opened into a massive chamber, a vault carved from the heart of the mountain. At its center stood a glass cylinder the size of a small room, filled with pale blue light. Inside it, countless crystalline structures shimmered like suspended stars. Cables snaked into the floor, feeding energy into something pulsing at the core. It wasn't just a generator. It was a memory bank, alive, breathing. On the wall beside it, a plaque read, Juniper Basin Project, Neural Preservation Unit. Her father's voice returned in her head. It's not containment anymore. It's protection. Balto walked forward, nose low to the ground, then stopped abruptly, his ears pinned back, a soft whine escaping his throat. Claire followed his gaze. There, behind a shattered control console, lay a human skeleton, still wearing a faded lab coat. The badge on its chest read, Dr. H. Harlow. Her knees gave out. No, she whispered, crawling forward. No, that can't be. The bones were fragile, sun-bleached with age, but the watch on the wrist was unmistakable. Her father's old silver Seiko, the same one he used to tap against his desk while thinking. She'd watched that small rhythm through half her childhood. He hadn't escaped the explosion. He'd died here in the dark. Balto pressed against her shoulder, whining softly. Claire buried her face in his fur, her tears hot against his cold coat. He died trying to protect it, she whispered. Whatever this is. When she finally rose, her flashlight flickered toward the main control terminal beside the cylinder. Its screen blinked weakly to life, showing old data lines and fragmented video logs. One file caught her eye. HB redacted MOS transmission 04. She pressed play. The image appeared grainy, filmed from inside the chamber. Her father stood there, younger than the skeleton she'd just found, speaking directly into the lens. They think it's energy storage. It isn't. It's consciousness pattern preservation. We captured more than data here. We captured essence, the echoes of minds. 14 people volunteered before the breach. 14 souls stored inside the crystal lattice. The military wanted to weaponize memory to record, to erase. I told them no. They forced the test. The explosion wasn't an accident. It was me. I sealed them in to save them. The image trembled as the camera turned, showing the very cylinder before her, lit, humming, alive. Claire, if you ever come here, you'll be scanned automatically. Your DNA matches mine. The system will recognize you as next of kin, as primary user. Don't open the wall behind the containment chamber. It's not holding monsters. It's holding me. The recording cut off. Claire stared at the screen, her heartbeat hammering in her ears. Behind the chamber was another wall, the one she'd seen in the lab above, the one that had cracked open the day before. Balto whined again, pacing, his nose pressed toward the passage they descended from. He was restless, uneasy, but loyal as ever, unwilling to leave her side. She turned toward the glowing cylinder, stepping closer. The hum deepened, the crystals shifting in faint rhythm. For a moment, she thought she could hear whispers coming from within, layered, overlapping, like multiple voices speaking through water. Then she heard her own name. Claire! She froze. The voice wasn't her father's. It was her own. She stumbled back, shaking her head. No, this can't. The console beside the chamber flickered again, new lines of text appearing. Neural signature match detected. Primary link, Claire Harlow. Stop, she whispered, backing away. Stop it. The hum crescendoed. The crystals inside the chamber pulsed in unison, glowing with impossible brightness. The whispers grew louder, swirling into chaos. She clutched her ears, collapsing to her knees. Then the power cut out. Silence swallowed the room. The glow faded until only a single crystal at the center still shone pale blue, flickering like a heartbeat. Claire crawled toward it, drawn despite the terror rising in her chest. When she placed her hand on the glass, the crystal flared, projecting a faint holographic image before her. Her father, sitting beside a control panel, his eyes hollow. "If you're seeing this, Claire, then you've already opened the system. I'm sorry. I didn't build a vault. I built a graveyard. But inside it lives what's left of us, our memories, our failures, our ghosts. And now you too are part of it. They'll come for you when they realize the system reactivated. Don't let them near it. Don't let them near you." The projection flickered out. Claire's body shook, cold sweat running down her back. She understood now. The hum, the tapping, the voice, none of it was supernatural. It was the data itself. Human consciousness encoded into the rock. And now that she had entered the chamber, the system had linked to her. Balto barked suddenly, spinning toward the stairway. Headlights flashed briefly from the narrow entrance above the low growl of engines reverberating down the corridor. They had come. Claire grabbed the nearest data drive, ripping it from the console. Sparks flying. "Come on, Balto," she whispered. "We have to go." They sprinted up the spiral stairs, the walls shaking as distant explosions echoed through the mountain. Dust rained from the ceiling. When she reached the main level, she saw movement through the cracked doorway, men in black tactical gear, their rifles catching the moonlight. She turned toward Balto. "Stay behind me." The first flashbang exploded before she finished the sentence. White light, soundless heat. Balto lunged toward the intruders, his body a blur of white fur and fury. Gunfire erupted. Claire screamed his name, diving behind the console as bullets tore through the stone. Then silence again, broken only by the echo of a single gunshot and the low whine of a dying generator. Smoke filled the chamber. Claire crawled toward Balto's body, dragging herself across the floor. He lay still, his fur stained dark, his eyes half open but calm, peaceful. Her trembling fingers brushed his face, and his tail twitched once, weakly. "No," she whispered, pressing her forehead against his. "Stay with me, please." His breath left in one slow sigh. The sound of boots closed in behind her. Voices barked orders. A man shouted, "Secure the asset!" Claire reached toward the control panel, blood on her hands. One final command blinked on the monitor. "Initiate containment protocol." She slammed her palm against the button. The entire cave roared alive, alarms screaming as the walls sealed. The intruders shouted, pounding on the metal doors as the containment lights turned red. Deep within the mountain, a new tremor rumbled, the kind that sounded like an awakening. Claire looked down at Balto one last time. "You saved me," she whispered, tears burning her eyes. "You always did." The air thickened with static, her hair lifting as though charged by unseen energy. The console blazed with light, displaying one final line of text before the world went white. "Memory transfer complete." Then the explosion came. It tore through the mountain like thunder, swallowing stone, light, and silence all at once. The wind over Juniper Basin howled for days after the explosion, carrying dust and ash across the hollow desert. The cave entrance had collapsed, sealing what remained of the facility beneath tons of stone. To the outside world, it was just another forgotten scar in the wasteland. The official report listed the incident as a containment malfunction. No survivors, no retrieval. But deep within the mountain, under the fractured vaults of metal and crystal, something still stirred. Claire opened her eyes. She was lying on a cold surface, her body weightless, the air humming faintly with static. When she sat up, she realized there was no air at all. No real air. Just light. The walls around her glowed softly, veins of pale blue energy pulsing like arteries through glass. Her reflection flickered in them, not solid but translucent, pixelated at the edges. "Balto!" Her voice echoed strangely, vibrating through layers of sound that didn't belong to this world. Then came the bark, faint, distant, but real enough to twist her heart. She turned. The husky stood a few feet away, tail low, fur silvered by the glow. He looked just as he had before the explosion, eyes clear, steady, filled with the same quiet loyalty that had carried her through the dark. "Balto," she whispered. Her knees buckled as she dropped beside him, wrapping her arms around his neck. His body felt warm, alive. But when she touched his fur, her fingers passed slightly through it, like water disturbed by wind. The truth hit her like a wave of cold. She wasn't alive. Not anymore. The memories rushed back all at once, the gunfire, the flash of light, Balto's last breath, the sound of the containment system activating. Her father's voice had warned her. "They'll come for you when the system reactivates." She had pressed the button, and in that final instant, the machine had done what it was designed to do. Memory transfer complete. Her consciousness had been pulled into the lattice, stored, preserved just like the others. She was now part of the vault. Balto sat down in front of her, tilting his head, studying her face with calm patience. For the first time, she understood why the system had recognized him too. The machine had scanned everything living within its range. His essence was here beside her, merged with hers. They had crossed together. Claire stood looking around the chamber. Beyond the glowing walls, she saw shapes, moving silhouettes of people walking through the light. 14 figures, faint as echoes. The scientists, her father among them. He stepped forward, his form flickering, eyes tired but kind. "You shouldn't have come here, Claire." Her throat tightened. "You left me no choice." He nodded slowly. "I tried to protect the world from this place, but protection demands a price. You've paid it, as I did." "Then it's true," she whispered. "This isn't just memory. We're trapped." Her father looked upward, where the light pulsed in slow rhythmic waves. "Trapped, yes, but not meaningless. The juniper lattice doesn't just preserve, it remembers, it learns. We've become part of something larger than life itself." She wanted to scream, to curse him, to demand why he'd condemned her to this half-existence. But as she looked at him, and at Balto sitting faithfully by her side, the fury faltered. The realization came quietly. He hadn't condemned her. He'd saved her from death, from the people who would have taken the vault and weaponized it. And now she was the only one who could keep it hidden. The floor beneath them trembled, a deep rumble rolling through the chamber. A faint sound, a voice cut through the static above. It was human, but distant, filtered through the earth. "Search Team 6, confirm coordinates. No biological readings. Moving on." Rescue crews, government agents, whatever they were gone now. The outside world had written this place off as another failed experiment. Good. Claire turned to her father. "So what happens now?" He looked toward the crystalline core. "Now you become what I was, the keeper. The lattice will fade if no one guides it. Someone has to remember the memories that built it, or they'll dissolve into noise." Claire stepped closer to the core. The hum deepened, vibrating in her chest. She saw fragments within the light. Her father holding her as a child, her husband laughing in their kitchen, her son running through rain. Then flashes of other scientists she never met, lives swallowed by the same machine. Every image was a pulse in the stone. Balto barked softly, the sound rippling through the light like a heartbeat. She smiled faintly, tears shimmering but never falling. "You're staying with me, right?" He wagged his tail once, then rested his head against her knee. In this new world, where time no longer meant anything, he was still her protector, her last anchor to who she had been. Claire placed her palm against the core. The light responded instantly, spreading through the chamber, weaving across the walls like veins awakening after sleep. The whispers of the dead grew softer, calmer, blending into a single harmonic tone. "I'll keep it," she whispered. "All of it. No one will ever use this again." Her father's image began to fade, the lines of his face dissolving into the glow. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "I wish I'd told you that when I had the chance." The light consumed him. Then he was gone. Claire stood alone with Balto, the vast chamber alive around them. Outside, the desert shifted under wind and time, bearing the entrance even deeper beneath the dunes. The world would forget the Juniper Basin Initiative, but within the mountain, a faint glow would remain, soft, steady, eternal. She knelt beside Balto, resting her forehead against his. "Guess it's just us again," she said softly. "Just us, keeping watch." He barked once in reply, the sound warm and low. The crystals pulsed in response, echoing his voice through the halls like a song. And as the centuries began to gather above, as dust turned to stone and memory turned to myth, the mountain kept its secret. Inside its heart, a woman and her husky stood side by side in the endless light guardians of a world that had forgotten them. The keeper of echoes,